BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
I was like, I don't think I put pants on in like a week, so.
Right?
It's like I've told people all the time. It's one of those, sounds horrible to say this, but as a kid, I wanted to go to like nudist colonies because, nude people. But now I'm like older. I'm like, I just want to go because I don't like pants.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to have to put on pants. That's the whole thing. So, but yeah. So no, it's pretty cool. It's an interesting new thing to be here. Plus, I can, instead of commuting to work, I just walk down the hallway,
Mm-hmm. That's
and
the
get up
best
at the
part.
normal time, do my VR workouts, go out and ride the bike in the garage. Whatever I want to do on my lunch, I can just do another workout if I feel like it. So, nah,
Yep, that's what I
because I
do.
got
I work
Iron
out in
Man
the
and
morning and then come work, stand on the porch and stare into space on my lunch break.
that one works. Yeah. Yeah, no,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
getting ready. I've got Iron Man in less than 2 weeks. So,
Nice.
yeah, doing the 70.3. So the half Iron Man. I'm not ready for a full. I want to do a full, but I just don't know when.
Yeah.
So
Hey, a
hopefully the
half is
next year.
still a big deal.
It is. It is. It'll be interesting. And I know, Dealers of Hope or whatever we're called now. Um, they're talking about starting to do triathlons. So,
Nice.
which will be interesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. All right. So, I guess we should record this thing and do whatever we're doing, but
We gotta catch up first.
yeah. We do. So, how have you been? I did notice, which Don will probably use half of our like normal conversation here in the episode. He just, yeah, the way he edits and he does really good at editing it. I can't say anything bad about it. If it wasn't for him, this one would still be going. But so how I noticed, didn't you have another surgery?
Hmm. Yep, I had an above knee amputation now.
Okay. And I saw that. 'Cause it seemed like you're having some problems with the prosthesis. I can't say that word. Um,
I can't say prostatist half the time. I have to think
yeah,
myself through it.
yeah. So, but you're having some issues with it, and that's why you had the above knee to make it work better, or was it an issue with medical?
It was the hardware that they left in there, the bone and the metal from the original limb salvage surgery, which when I consulted for the original amputation, for the first amputation, I kind of told them I didn't really want to keep all of that in there, and they were like, "Oh no, we should do that. We should save your knee." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then turns out that just didn't work very well. So I consulted with a new surgeon. I was having issues with infections and I was swelling out of my prosthesis. I couldn't wear it for like 5 months or something like that. And so we just said, let's just start over for reals this time, get rid of everything that's not supposed to be there and try again. So I am trying again.
And it's working much better.
So much better. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I am in so
Yeah,
much
because
less pain.
which is which is the point. I mean, I think it's one of those things that a lot of people miss is it's the what is the being able to live, being able to do
Hmm.
things, and if you're having pain and you're having swelling, you can't wear the can't say that word, prosthetic. Let's just go with that. The
We can run with
prosthetic.
that.
Um, I mean, what's the point if you can't wear it because of, swelling and everything else and all that? It's like, it's the quality of life. That's the word I was looking for. Having that quality of life to be able to do things and live.
Yeah, because what was the point of doing it in the first place was to get the quality of life back. So, and when I sat down with the surgeon, I let him know right up front. I was like, before we even start talking about what's wrong with this leg, I need you to know this is what my life looks like. This is what my life should look like when you fix it. So whatever you're about to tell me, your solution should be to get me back to that point. And he said, okay, I say we just amputate above the knee. Have you ever thought about it? And I was like, unfortunately, I've thought about it because, I wasn't always okay with that idea. I freaked out for a good month about it while I was in the decision-making process. But I just had to keep telling myself, this is for your quality of life. And there's literally no point in not doing it if you can't wear your prosthesis.
Yeah. I mean, prosthesis is so that you can function, you
Yeah.
know, and if you can't wear it, they need to do something to fix that, which I'm glad they did.
Oh yeah. It's a lot better now. It was harder, and the recovery and learning to use it was infinitely harder than the first time, but it's been worth it.
Which is good. That is very good. Oh, everything else going good with you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Things like I said, learning how to I've been back in the gym, learning how to do all the things, which is really interesting because leg day is now literally leg day because there's not much I can do with the other one. But learning how to move and how to function through life. It's all going good though. It's so much better
That's
than it
good.
was when I was struggling. I'll put it that way.
That's good. That's good. 'Cause it's quality of life. I mean, it goes into so many other things because if you don't have good quality of life for whatever reason, you're not going to have good mental health. You're not going to, which is going to spiral down, which could make other things. And I've seen people do that, like the death spirals, I almost want to call it, because really that's what it becomes, is something happens that their quality of life isn't that good. They don't fix it, causes their mental health to go bad. Then the mental health causes more things in their life to start going bad, which causes more mental health issues. And it just becomes that spiral, into nothingness, which is horrible to um,
Yeah, and if you can't, you got to break the cycle eventually, but if everything just keeps going wrong, it's so hard to break the cycle and find something to latch onto to pull yourself out of it. But um really for me, I just had to get through the surgery in order to pull myself out of it because with the trauma from the first amputation, I couldn't quite break my mind out of this idea that this is going to suck, this is going to be terrible, I'm going to be in pain. And that's what I kept getting stuck on was how bad it was going to be, even though I could consciously tell myself I trust my
yeah,
surgeon and this is all for the best. And so once I finally got past the surgery and got to recovery and realized, oh, okay, it really isn't that bad. This is, it was the one of the easiest surgeries I have ever had, which is miraculous considering the surgeries I've had. But
that's
um
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you gotta find a way to pull yourself out of it no matter what that looks like. Because like you said, it will just keep spiraling.
Yeah, and it's one of those things in constant battle because the spiral always keeps starting up somewhere, and it's finding that way out. And a lot of times, like you said, it's one of those breaking your own, because a lot of times it's our own mind that
Hmm.
causes the issues. Like we don't, oh, I don't want to do that because that's going to be, and it's like, but is it going to be worse? It's like, when you talk about not wanting to amputate above the knee, and it's like, but now that you've done it, you're like, okay, this probably was this was the right choice. But it's really hard sometimes because we have that mental break for whatever reason. We're like, I don't want that,
Yeah.
and sometimes that is what you actually really need and what's going to make it even better.
I was reading up on things like PTSD and other mental health issues, and a lot of times, um, your brain, especially in the case of PTSD, it shuts down the left side of your brain, the logical side that allows you to tell yourself, these are the reasons it's going to get better, or this is how it's going to get better. And so you're running solely off of your emotional reactions and your knee-jerk reactions. And and if you don't, for one, if you don't know that, it's hard to talk yourself out of it. But even if you do know it, that side of your brain, if it doesn't want to come back on and let you think through the logic of your situation, it's not going to come back on. And that's kind of the issue with a lot of the mental health issues is when you start getting into that place, your brain's not even working with you to help you.
No, I mean that's why you see with the anxiety, and stuff like that, and that's really what anxiety is. It's the PTSD of the shutting down the one side of your brain, the logical side that's gonna, work your way out of it to say, hey, your anxiety, there's reasons why, and I don't want to say it's because it's valid. It is the anxiety is very valid, but your brain shuts off that part of your brain that could logically work you out of it.
Right.
You know, because a lot of times, anxiety is stuff that to a lot of people like, oh, just get over it because it's something that to somebody else doesn't seem that big, but your brain has made it that big, and because of that, left side shutting down, it becomes even worse. It's
Right.
insane.
And
Our brain is our biggest nemesis.
it really is. And yet, in some cases, it's our biggest ally. And there's
Mhm.
never any indication of when it's going to be because it kind of just does its own thing sometimes. And it is what it is. But the research behind it's fascinating, behind
Oh
all of the
yeah.
mental health stuff. So, um, like I said, sometimes it doesn't necessarily help to know that that's what's happening because you're still sitting there going, well, I still feel anxious, even though I know what's happening in my brain. Um, but sometimes it does help.
Oh yeah.
It's helped me a little.
It helps a little bit to know, but I mean, it still doesn't change the fact that like right now, like I'm doing that, like I said, I'm doing Ironman in less than 2 weeks, and I'm completely terrified. Even though this is what my fourth. I finished one. I've had two that I DNF'd. So this is my fourth, but I'm still terrified.
Hmm.
I'm just like I'm terrified. I mean, it's like I'm afraid something's gonna go wrong. I'm going through the bike, just had it completely, spent $200 having the whole thing tuned up. And then I'm making sure I have everything I need, in case I blow a tire, I have everything I have to fix that. I have this, I have that, and I'm just so paranoid. And it's probably all going to go just fine, but you never know. So,
Right.
uh,
The thing is I
yeah,
can't blame you because I'm looking forward to, future races and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking, what am I thinking? Is, now I've got the same, in the same sense, like equipment. You've got to make sure the equipment is going to work properly. And and so I can only imagine because when I get to about 2 weeks before my first race back with this above knee prosthesis, I'm gonna be having the same thoughts like, what's gonna go wrong? Am I gonna be able to make it? And, what's the course gonna be like? Because the course doesn't help you out at all.
no, no. I mean, I'll be honest. In the Ironman, it's one of the reasons why I picked the one that I do. One, because it's like an hour from my house. It's an easy one to go to. But also it's flat as can be. I mean, last year the bike ride, I think there's 200 feet elevation gain, and that's only because there's a bridge you have to go over.
Nice.
And it's 100 feet on the way over the bridge, and then when you come back, you go another 100 feet again to go back over the bridge. And that it's flat and just whoop, gone. But
Oh yeah. That's why I like the
so
Florida obstacle course races because you can't put a lot of elevation in Florida. So
yeah, but you put a lot of mud and marsh and swamp and alligators and everything else.
that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. That's going to be
It is. It
interesting
is.
because stepping into mud with a prosthetic foot and not being able to feel where that mud ends and not being able to feel the holes, it's one of the hardest parts of it. So I'm going to have to start
Well, I
training
bet.
myself to be okay just stepping in and trusting that you might go a little bit farther than you expected.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you'll have a good group of people with you helping you out. I'm hoping.
Oh yeah. Oh, I am
So,
not going to attempt to be doing any races without my people.
oh, yeah. It's and if you have good people, I mean, it's one of those things. Whether you're fully abled or whatever I always forget the correct ways I'm supposed to say all that, whatever. Or an adaptive athlete, having a good group with you makes it all the better.
Oh yeah. The morale,
Always.
everything about it makes it better.
Yeah.
Also, I also
And
don't
that's
know
one
what the
that
term
I,
is for that. Like they use so many different something abled terms. I'm like, I have no issue
yeah.
telling you that in all technicalities, I'm disabled. I just refuse to use the connotation that comes with it. And
Yeah.
that's what I'll put for that.
I mean, I feel we're all differently abled in different ways. So we all have our own little issues and quirks and whatever, and nobody's the same. So some of us need a little bit more help on some things and others don't. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So it's definitely interesting. I will say that's one weird part about Ironman though, is it took me a while to get used to because I got so used to OCRs and stuff like that. Even though I do run like marathons and half marathons, but even then I usually had someone with me. Uh, Ironman's is a solely you. It's
Hmm.
a solo you against everything. And it took me a while in the first couple triathlons I did to really get that mental, whatever. Because I did it the first couple with my buddy, but he swam better than me. So by the time we got out of the water, he was gone. So it was one of those that, okay, so I guess I am alone, so it's a different feeling when you're out there and, especially on the first half Ironman, well, I actually, finished the bike because the first two I DNF'd. Came in too late on the bike. So I never got to do the run. On this last one, when I'm doing the run, luckily my wife was able to, because it was loops, and my wife found a spot so I could see her as I come through on the loops. So that was a little helpful. But other than that, it was just me and my own brain going, go.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I can't imagine trying to just be alone with my thoughts doing something that difficult. That must have taken some mental training, not just physical training.
It does. It did a little bit. I mean, because it's 8.5. I mean, I was out there 8 hours and 50 minutes. So, and I've done one other where my first marathon when I was 310, I did with Boggs, with Don. Um, and he about mile 22, 23, his back started spasming and he was done. He couldn't do anything else. He couldn't go. And I'm like, if I stop to help you, I'm not gonna be able to finish this. And I had a goal to finish a marathon by my 40th birthday, and my 40th birthday was literally like 4 days after that. So this was my one and only shot. So I'm like, I'm
Hmm.
finishing, I'm going. I was the last person on course. Everybody else was gone, done. I mean, they were taking down the course behind me after I passed. In some places, actually taking it down in front of me. Um, that was probably one of the most alone I think I've ever felt for those like 4 miles. Just by yourself going along. My leg was killing me, and I'm just like, because it took me a little over 9 hours to do my first marathon. Because, like I said, I was 310 pounds. I did not move quick, but I finished it. And in all honesty, I wasn't the last one. I passed the last racer with like 100 feet left.
Hmm.
So, but I did ask. I'm like, "Do you want to finish together so you don't have to, you don't have to be the last one?" She's like, "No, just go ahead." And I'm like, "Cool, I'm gone."
Yeah.
But that's I think the most alone. I think that was one of the things that really got me. And then during COVID, when I was running, there wasn't anyone to go with, so I was out running by myself, just in my own thoughts. The hardest part with Ironman though is you're not allowed to have headphones
I
on an
thought that was
Ironman.
going to be like your saving grace was like at least you could listen to music or something. Oh no.
So that's where it becomes the hardest part, because you're not allowed to have headphones, because they want you to be able to hear what's around you. And I'm like, I mean, I have the bone conduction. They're like, nope, nothing. You can't have any of that. So, and part of it too, I know, is for like the elites. They don't want, I guess somehow they cheat with them. I don't know how you cheat with them, but I use them like when I just did the half marathon. I have an app on my phone called Intervals, and I have it set for 2 minute intervals. So it'll tell me like 2 minutes, and then I'll run, or, quick jog for 2 minutes, and then it'll click and say 2 minutes. So I'll stop and I'll like quick walk, whatever, just kind of, for about 2 minutes, and then run for 2 minutes, and then walk, and then run, and then walk, and go back and forth. And I was able to do that on the rock and roll half marathon, got 2 hours and 58 minutes on a half marathon. So it was kind of kept me going and kept me, and everything else. And it's really helpful that way. But you can't do that on Ironman, so that's going to be the hardest part. And that was the hardest part last year, was
Just
technically you're not
you
even
and your
supposed to have your
thoughts.
phone. Yeah. Technically you're not
Oh
even supposed to
boy.
have your phone, but I keep mine in my the bike. I have a little saddle bag thing. I keep mine in there because if something happens, I'm calling some.
Yeah,
Plus it has a
definitely.
GPS in there, so everyone knows where I'm at. But
Right. Yeah, on my first 5K with my below-knee amputation, I was a little bit too ambitious. It was one that the cause was really close to my heart, and I was like, I can't miss this. I have to do it. So I had a couple of friends that did it with me, and I was the last racer within the first quarter of a mile because I had my prosthesis. I had only had it for maybe 2 months, and it was one of those days it did not want to fit. No matter what I did to it, it was not going to fit. And so within the first quarter to a half a mile, I still had the prosthesis on, but I grabbed my crutches and started using crutches to get through the race. Um, and so even though I had my friends there, and that was the only thing that got me through it, because at some point, you can't even see the other racers. They've turned the corner. You're all by yourself. You are the last person on that course. And we would have cops drive by and stop us and be like, hey, do you guys need any help? Do you want us to take you back? And I was like, I am finishing this race if it takes me 3 hours. I don't care. I'm gonna do it. And I'm like in tears by that point because I'm like, I just want to finish this race. And my friends stuck it out with me the whole time. And then we turned the corner to the finish line, and they had kept the finish line up, and the volunteers had lined both sides of the finish line. And so they were cheering, and we were all crying, and it was a whole emotional ordeal. But I cannot fathom if I were to be doing that by myself, just no music, no people, just me trying to make myself. I don't know that I would have, because that is a tough mental thing to do when you're just sitting there thinking about how hard it is that you're doing the thing.
It's tough because I mean the swim, you know, whatever. I mean, I actually do have headphones that work in the water, so I have like the Shocks open swims where I can listen to music while I'm in the water. Um, so that part's not too bad. It's about an hour, hour and a half, or hour and you're an hour and 10 minutes to finish the swim. I'm usually about an hour to an hour and five to finish it. So that's not too bad. But the bike ride, you're just pedaling along and going. Sometimes you'll see people on the side, so it's kind of that one's where it gets bad. On the run, luckily, because it's a loop and they call it Moody Gardens, it's a kind of a theme park thing here in Galveston. So there's people that are cheering you on. So that's at least keeps you get a little bit motivated. People, you know, cheering you on, like, yay, you know, you're doing great. So that part's good. But I mean, the hard part was, like I said, I'm used to pop in my music, or sometimes I even listen to podcasts or something, just something going in my head to get my brain out of the fact that I'm doing this horribly thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I was trying
so
to explain to
it's
someone that
interesting.
when you're in the middle of that, because I was trying to convince a friend to do a Spartan race with me, and he was like, "That sounds awful. That sounds. I don't know why you want to do that." And I was like, I'm going to explain it to him. I'm going to tell him how great it is." And then I just paused because I went, "Yeah, when I'm in the middle of it, I don't think it's that great." And then I get to the end and go, "Oh, that was amazing." And I told him that, and he goes, "You're insane. Why?
Yeah.
It doesn't even, you don't even have fun during." And I was like, well, it is fun. It's just like maybe you're not your typical definition of fun.
We were talking about that because the Houston Spartans just a couple weeks ago. We were talking about that when on course. We're like, we hate this where we're out here, but once we're done, we're like, that was amazing. Let's do it again.
Right?
But no, I had fun at Houston though, because I did the second day. I wasn't going to. I was just gonna do because I did the teddy bear crawl. I was gonna wear I had my onesie, my Bucky's onesie, for the teddy bear crawl, and then I was gonna take it off and do the races. But it was cold, and I'm like, forget it. I'm just wearing the onesie, and I did both the super and the sprint, or the
Oh
super
my
and the
gosh,
sprint
that's
wearing the Bucky's
awesome.
onesie. I got a great video of me doing the bender with the onesie on. So
That is so cool. I can't wait to get back to the bender, because I was so close to being able to do that obstacle before everything happened, and now I get to re-strategize it because I can't control my knee on that side in the way that I would need
yeah,
to do that obstacle. So uh, that's going to be the interesting thing about the first
yeah,
race back, is figuring out how in the world do I do all of this.
yeah. And I mean, it's gonna be like the first time trying to figure out, okay, how do I, look at it and figure out how you do it. Because like for me, I was just thinking about that. Yeah, because I need my left leg to do bender, because that's how I get over the top. Because
Yep.
I take my leg and put it over the top, and then like curl it around the next one to like lock it in place, so that I can use my basically my hamstring or my calf muscle or quad muscles. Those are the ones to pull me over.
Yeah.
Because that's how I
Yeah. I've
used to
got,
with walls.
yep. See, one of my big things was, at least with the below knee prosthesis, I could use my knee. I couldn't, bend my ankle very much, but at least I still had my knee, and I could use my quads and my hamstrings to kind of lock in place. That's out. Now we got
Yeah.
to rely on other muscles. So
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing about the gym right now, though, is going in and going, I want to do squats. How in the world do I do squats with, you know, I just turn the locking mechanism off on my knee, so it kind of free swings, and it gives me some resistance while I squat, but it's not the same on that side.
Yeah.
And trying to tell yourself, put weight on it. and squat. And so I try something new about every week and just go, I'm never going to figure it out if I don't try it.
No, you're not.
And luckily I go in the morning, so usually there's no one else in the gym. And if I make a fool of myself, then I'm the only one that saw it, so it's fine.
I'm a big believer in if you're at the gym, you really can't make a fool of yourself. I mean, you might do something that looks a little funny and whatever and be kind of awkward, but I mean, if you're in the gym, I won't make fun of anybody for anything they do in the gym because it's like you're there, you're
At
doing
least you're
something,
there.
you're working. Yeah, you haven't given up.
Hmm.
So many people, I mean, so many people given half of what you've been given would have given up,
Right. And
and you
that's the
haven't.
thing I've got to keep reminding
You,
myself every once in a while is, just show up, and that's all that really matters. And honestly, more than looking like a fool, most people just ask me what I'm doing and then we kind of giggle about it. So I was trying to do hip thrusts and I thought, I want to use my other leg. There has got to be a way to use that other leg to at least get a little bit of activation. And so I took off my prosthesis and they have those bigger dumbbells that are like this big. So I set it up and I put my thigh on it. And that kind of gave me the leverage to push my thigh down on it. And I could, it's not quite the same, but I could figure it out and do a hip thrust. So I'm getting these dumbbells set up and I'm moving everything around. And one of the girls looks at me and she just goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, wait, just watch, just watch. And then I got my leg on it and started doing hip thrusts. And she was like, "Oh my God, that actually worked." And I was like, took me a minute, but it worked. And so a lot of times it just turns into a fun story. So I don't even know why I think
mm,
about things like, oh, what if I look like a fool? I'm in the gym without a leg. I think it's fine.
yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, like I said, you're still working it, you're still doing it. I mean, that's amazing. Like I said, most people without those issues have already given up. I mean, I've seen so many people that are like, oh, I've gained a little bit of weight. I can't do. Yeah, you can go. I was 310 pounds.
You got to start somewhere. That's
Yeah.
just that's the thing. And this has been like a restart really for almost the third time because I had to start the first time with the salvage surgery and then I had to retry everything with the first amputation. And so now it really is, I'm sitting there thinking, we're back at square one. My cardio is terrible now. It's so depressing. I'm back to lifting what I started with a couple of years ago, but I'm thinking, you're not going to get back to where you were if you don't start where you are.
Yep. Yeah. It's like they always say, 5 years from now, you're gonna be looking back at this, saying, "Hey, look at where I was now. Look at where I am." So, which is awesome. And for me, I found weird ones. And one of my favorite ones sounds crazy. My favorite workout, especially for cardio, is I've got a VR headset, and there's a program on there called FitXR. Love it. I
Mm,
do it 2 or 3 times a day.
nice.
And boxing, they even have options that you can do for people who are sitting.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, they have options for people who are sitting. In fact, one of the boxing instructors on it, of course, they're animated, but it's animated as his he has a prosthetic leg. So
Oh, that makes me so happy. I always get
I was really
ecstatic when
happy
I
when I
see that
saw it.
representation.
Hmm. Yeah, when I saw the representation of that, I'm like, that's awesome. So, and I think one of the ones that does a lot of the sitting ones, I think he's like both legs are missing,
Mm,
but they never show him like below. But I think just from some of the things I've seen, I'm pretty sure he's a double amputee. But I mean, it's awesome to see that representation and also to show people you can still do this. You can still
mm,
do all this stuff, You've just got to find different ways, and that's,
yeah.
one of the things I think, adapt and conquer. And
Hmm.
that's it. I mean, for me, I didn't have as bad. I mean, I shattered my foot 7 years ago and they told me I never run again. I did a marathon after that. I've done 4 marathons since then, and Ironmans and like 60 Spartans. So, I mean, I think they were wrong.
I
But
think they might have been wrong.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And a
So
lot of
definitely
times
not
I
as bad
have
as
to,
yours, but
oh, everything,
Yeah.
anytime I think where someone tells you you're never going to do that or this is your limit, I think that, you know, it falls into the same category of you
Hmm.
just have another thing that you have to overcome.
Yeah. And it's just retraining your body in a lot of ways. I mean, I think the hardest thing for me after I broke my foot was retraining how to run differently because I don't get the flex in my foot that I'm supposed to because I broke all five metatarsals and the bones are now shaped like this instead of straight. My toes touch my heel. So to give you an
Oh
idea,
Lord.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't a good thing. But so I mean, it was learning how to run without that flex, and so of course my hips started having issues and everything else because nothing's working quite right, and everything's kind of out of alignment. And I still have some issues with my hips because of it, but I figured out how to get those muscles and how to run correct, close to correctly, as correctly as I can,
Yeah.
to make it not so bad. I mean, it's a very small example of kind of what you have to do a lot of that with learning how to now that you learned how to do it after the initial surgery, and then you had the below knee amputation, then you learned how to do everything then, and now it's learning how to do it all again, with the above knee amputation, and then getting those muscles trained and being able to do everything that you can do. And I'm impressed because like I said, I
Thank you.
you don't you see a lot of people give up long before you
Hmm.
have. And you've advocated for yourself to be able to get that surgery, because most people just would have been, well, this is what the doctor said it is, and this is what it is.
Oh yeah,
And
when
you're
they
like,
tried to
no.
pull that with me this go around, I was like, I want a second opinion. I ended
Yeah.
up going, and that's what you have to do sometimes. And I wish more people knew how important it is to advocate because when I went back to the surgeon that did the below knee amputation, they weren't giving me good options. I was not happy with it. So I said, okay, I'm going to go somewhere else. Um, so I went somewhere else and he said, hey, I think you'd be better off going to this person. They can advise you better. I went to that person. They said, yeah, that's a really difficult situation. I'm going to send you to this person. And that was finally the surgeon I got to that would do that. And you have to have patience to do that kind of,
Hmm.
getting to the person you need to get it done correctly. But I have no regrets because when I tell you night and day difference, it's so hard to describe to people because people ask me all the time, is this better? And it's like that is such a multifaceted question because yes, it's better, a million times better, but it's harder. So you have to balance that. Well, it's better than not being able to walk at all, but it was harder to get here. And like you were saying, like you almost have to teach yourself to move differently on both sides. So you have the sound side where you're walking normally, and then you have your amputated side where you're not even doing remotely anything similar in movement to what you're doing because you're only working with your hip flexors and glutes on the amputated side. And then you're just trusting the leg to do what it's supposed to do. And then you have to build endurance on those muscles, and like you said, it throws off your hips and it throws off your back, and then you have to do all of this mobility training and all of that to keep yourself in line. And so I think the hardest part for me is I have to constantly remind myself, you're only barely 5 months out of surgery. This only happened 5 months ago. You have to give yourself some grace that you're not going to just jump up and start, running 5Ks and 10Ks again. You've got you've got to work on it. You've got to go small. Don't hurt yourself the first time you go out for a little walk. Um, and so the farthest I've gotten is half a mile, no crutches, no anything, and it took me about 24 minutes because I would go for a little bit and then just kind of stand there and think about it and go, okay, this leg's got to move like this and this leg's got to move like this and okay, let's try that again and just doing gait training at the same time. So um, I have to remind myself a lot to chill out, slow down. You're only 5 months out and you've got your whole life ahead of you to get back to doing all of the crazy stuff. But you can't screw it up 6 months after you got the surgery. You gotta take care of yourself. So it has taught me how to have grace on myself for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, you definitely have to take care of yourself. And I think that's the hardest thing because we want to get back to what we did. We want to
Hmm.
keep doing well. We were doing this before, and it's like, yeah, you are, but you need to, and I mean, we've all done it. I mean, my biggest thing I think back, when I was a teenager, I blew my knee. Took me like 4 years for my knee to heal because every time I freaking got somewhat healed and felt like, oh, hey, it's feeling better, I would go do something completely stupid and blow my knee again. So I think I blew it like 4 times within those 4 years. It'd be like right at that point where it's like, okay, you're just about done with everything. And I'd stop wearing the brace and I'd go do something I wasn't supposed to and then tear everything again. And they're like,
Yep.
oh, yeah, good job. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I
And I
think
think,
I say that's the patience is the hardest part. So good on you on that one.
yeah, it really is the hardest part. And it is when, I don't know about you, but for me, doing Spartan races before I was an amputee, I could just put it in my head, oh, you're going to get blisters on your feet. You're going to get sore muscles. You're going to get bruised up. You just gotta, mindset. You just got to take yourself through it. And now, especially with my residual limb, you get a blister, you're done for weeks. You are not wearing a prosthesis for weeks. And you better not wear it until it heals because in the same sense, if you reopen a blister or a wound, you're back to square one for a couple more weeks. So it's like that mindset is still there where it goes, oh, I can just push myself. I can just, I'll deal with that tomorrow. Except now, tomorrow is actually 3 or 4 months from now. So, you kind of have to play war with that mindset of going, I know that I can, and I know very well that, if I needed to, I could push myself and do this, but I don't actually need to, and I can just take care of myself and try again later.
Mhm. And I think that's the hardest part because we were all, I mean, I can tell you so many stories of me pushing through something that I never should have. My first, well, not my first, but one of my half marathons, I told myself there was this cool medal you get if you did the rock and roll like Portland and Seattle, like back to back, like half marathons. And they were 2 weeks apart.
Oh Lord.
So I did Portland, and in the middle of Portland, my knee popped. And I'm like, oh, it's not too bad, whatever. I finished the race. Wasn't bad. I'm like, oh, it's okay. But normally I would give myself, wrap, everything else, ice it, give it months to heal. I had 2 weeks. 2 weeks went to Seattle going down one of the downhills, which most people don't realize when your knees are screwed up. The downhill is the problem, not the up.
Mm-hmm.
Going downhill, all of a sudden my knee just completely just gave out. And stupid me, mile like 8, I think. I finished. But by the time I
For
finished,
the
I
cool
had to.
medals.
Yep, I got the cool medals. They're hanging in the garage next to all the rest of them. But by the end of it, like just about every other step, my knee was starting to give out. Would give out just about
Mm-hmm.
every other step. And I remember finishing and looking at my wife, going, "We need to go to the car." She's
Yeah.
like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because my knee's done. If I stop moving, my knee's not gonna work." And by the time once we got home, I had to have help getting out of the car and getting up the stairs. Went to the doctor. They're like, "If you would have stopped when it hurt, you'll probably be okay, but you're done." They're like,
Mm.
you're looking at 6, 7 months of physical therapy, everything else to be able to use that knee again. And I'm like, awesome. So it's, that thing of, like you said, it's sometimes pushing yourself okay, but you have to know that limit of like, okay, if I push myself past here, we got problems. And like you said, with yours, you get a blister, you get anything on that leg, the residual, I mean, there's problems. That
Mm-hmm.
means you're done for till that's healed. And if it doesn't heal and it pops and it gets infected, now you got even more issues, and then to where you see like the compounding start to come in. And that's why it's got to, the patience is going to be the hardest part. That would be the hardest part for me. It's the patience because I want to do everything now.
Oh yeah. If it would have been up to me, I would have been with Dealers of Hope in Jacksonville a couple of months ago doing my thing, but I was like, good and well that's a bad idea. Just take your
Hmm.
time. You will be back. Um, and I'm not a patient person. I'm working on it, and certainly life has taught me patience through this. And I have reasons to be patient, but that doesn't mean I'm happy about it by any means.
No, no, patience is not one of my virtues. And that's one of my biggest things. I'm like, I want to do everything now. And that's the hard part for me. I want to do a full Ironman, but I know then I need to train for it. Because if I go for it like I did with my first half Ironman, I'm just like, oh, I'll do it. It's fine. I'll be good. But I didn't train on the bike. I wasn't ready on the bike. I had never even ridden the bike that I did the Ironman in. And I finished the bike portion, but because I had so many issues with the bike and because I wasn't used to it and I didn't train on it, I was 16 minutes too late
Mhm.
and I couldn't even do the run. So I was like, oh, good. Next year I trained my butt off and then bit it on the bike and bent the back brake and screwed myself. But that's why now I have like, I can fix everything. I can take that bike apart and put it back together on course with everything I have with me. And it all fits
Mhm.
in a little pack like this big.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I carry a
but
backpack with me everywhere because I have all the things I need to fix as many problems as I can with my leg. Granted, this leg, let me tell you, is absolutely incredible. My prosthetist, shout out to her because she has made this. I don't want to say, oh, it feels like a real leg because that is it. I am very conscious that it is not a real leg, but it is even better than I ever expected that it could be. I did not know that you could adapt to something and have equipment that worked that well and that lifelike. And even people look at it and they go, "Oh my gosh, it moves like a knee." It does, and it's absolutely amazing. But I still carry all my stuff. I still carry, things if I have to change from one type of liner to the other, if I have to, adjust something. I keep a shoehorn just in case I need to pop the foot off and fix something with the foot because, you never know when you're going to get away from the stuff you need when it was easy enough just to put it in a bag and carry it with you.
hmm yeah, and that's one of the things. It's. I know a lot of people are like minimalist when they ride the bike. Me, I have the very first time I probably had way too much with me. I mean, I had like everything like in a backpack, and now I've got it down to a point where it's all in a little. I mean, the pack's like this big and sits behind the seat, but still, it's like I need to be able to fix anything I can. For one, I'm not
Hmm.
that quick on the bike, so if the bike breaks, I have like 10 minutes. And if I waste any more than 10 minutes on it, I'm probably not going to finish in time. So I need to make sure I can and do everything I can. And for like you, I mean, it's one of those things that's, if something goes wrong with that's your mode. It's not like, if my car breaks down, I can get out and walk a little bit. I mean, whatever. I mean, that is your walk. So
Hmm.
if your leg starts to have, a problem, and like we said, if it's not right and it starts rubbing the wrong spot, gives you blisters, starts causing, as I like call them, owie spots, anything like that, it's not good. So I mean,
Right.
it's
And
good to
at
have
that
all
point,
that stuff.
if it does start bothering me, it's like you got to just stop. You can't, fine. If I'm 10 feet away from the house, I can kind of hobble to the house and get in and sit down. But if I'm out and about, it's a problem. And I'll tell you a funny story is that so the knee is electronic and has, it connects to my phone. I can adjust stuff with my phone to tell it to do different things. Super cool. And I went to the gym one morning. Everything was fine. I couldn't connect to my app for some reason, but I was like, oh, maybe it's just having some issues. Maybe it's the weather. I don't know. And came home, took it off, and usually I'll keep it off while I'm working because there's no reason to keep it on while I'm sitting at a desk. And I went to get on my lunch break and I put my leg on, took a step, and it went and didn't move. It didn't bend, it didn't swing forward, it just stuck straight. And I'm going, oh no. Oh boy, what happened? So I thought, went through all the troubleshooting. I thought maybe the charger had gone bad and so it was dead. Turns out my leg put itself into deep sleep mode. I don't know how it did that. I kind of prefer not to think about it. Um, but we got it turned back on a day later. But my mom was she laughed at me a lot and I laughed with her because I have almost bonded with my leg to the point where when it wasn't working, I kept going into my room and pushing the buttons and checking the app, going, yeah, is it this? Is it this? Is my leg okay? And she's like, are you really worried about your leg? And I'm like, yes, I feel like I've bonded with it. Like my friend is sick. But in the
hmm
same sense, that's walking. So I'm also sitting there planning, what do I have for the next couple of days if I can't get this thing to work? How do I need to replan whatever I have to compensate for the fact that I can't use my leg? And so, luckily we got it turned back on the next day and we're trying to figure out the mystery of Hal turned himself off. But it really is like,
Ow.
you know, so much thought goes into it. If you can't fix the issue that you're having on the fly, you're stuck.
No, I do love that you call it Hal, but um,
2001 Space Odyssey.
that's exactly where I was going. I was thinking the AI turning itself off. So, but I mean, it's one of those things I think a lot of people don't think about it. It's not as easy as just like, oh, hey, it's not working, I'll just go get another one. I mean, they're specially made, specially built for the individual, everything else, and they're expensive as hell. So most people only have one. You don't have a spare one sitting in the freaking closet.
Nope. Nope, because
I
like
mean,
you said, they're insanely expensive. And, you know, if you want a replacement, and there are ways, you know, you can warranty it. If it's having issues, they'll send you a replacement. But the problem is that you got to get the replacement to your office. You've got to get to your office to get the replacement. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is that with knees like that, it actually learns how you walk. So in a way, you have to train it. So even when you do get the new one or you get the replacement, now you've got to train it to be how you want it. So it takes a little bit of time for it to relearn. Like one of the biggest things I had to teach it is going downhill. Downhill's the hard part. And so it compensates for that, and it has an amazing gait pattern going down a slope, but you still have to teach it how to do that, and you still have to keep doing it until it figures it out. And so, you know, like you said, it's not as simple as just, oh, let's just switch that part out. Because even once you get the part switched out, now you gotta teach it how to do what you want it to do. And there is just so much to think about. And I think that's what I wish a lot of people knew was it's almost like your brain is going in overdrive 24/7 thinking, oh no, there's a rain cloud. How am I going to compensate for that? Or um, the ground is uneven. How am I going to compensate for that? Oh, there's a clicking noise that's happening. I hope that's not a problem. And you're constantly thinking, if this goes wrong, how am I going to fix it? And if, you know, if this happens, how am I going to fix it? And you encounter new places. If you're going somewhere you've never gone before and you're thinking, are there stairs? Are there ramps? You know, what does this situation look like? And again, it's a lot of it is about flexibility and just being able to meet a situation and go, okay, I've never done this before, so what do I have to do to get through it? Like we went to a planetarium a couple of weeks ago, and the morning that we went to the planetarium, my legs started falling off. We changed the suspension and it was just suction. My leg shrank and it was falling off. So I was like, no big deal. I'll grab crutches. It'll be fine. And you know, I would hold one crutch and kind of hold my leg on with the other hand. But then we got to stairs and we had to go upstairs to get to the planetarium. And so every time I took a step, it would fall off. So I said, hey, Mom, I need you to get behind me and hold my leg up while I go up the steps. Because if not, it's just going to fall off. And so we were laughing about it. It's a good thing we have a sense of humor about it, because she's hopping up the steps with me, holding my leg onto me. And you just never know what's going to happen.
no, and I mean that's the thing. I think that's one of the things, and I mentioned this people like, with doing Spartan races, doing stuff like that. It teaches us how to look at things in a different way. Because when an obstacle comes at you, you know, it sounds bad, but most people's like first instinct is to just sit down and say, "Well, this sucks."
Mm-hmm.
In doing Spartan races, doing, obstacle course racing altogether, whether it's Spartan, Survivor, all the other ones, um, it teaches you to look at it and go, okay, so how do I go up, over, around this? How do I get past this obstacle rather than giving up? So, I mean, it's, one of those things, like you said, you see the stairs and it's like, well, this is going to be a problem. How do we do this? And okay, it's not conventional, but Mom, I need you to grab my leg and hold it on.
Yep.
Yeah, but it
And
works.
really, the obstacle course races became such a huge metaphor for my life. You know, because I did them, I had cancer and did the limb salvage surgery and then started doing them. Compared to amputations, though, that was like the easy portion of my life. And so when I hit that part where I'm all of a sudden I'm learning all of these things about prosthetics that you couldn't even fathom unless you're going through it. I would just look back on it and go, okay, but what do I do when I hit the bender? Or what do I do when I hit the cargo net? You just got to strategize and you have to find a way over it because you're not going to get farther on that course or your, metaphorical course of life if you don't figure out a way to move past it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that's it. Just keep going forward.
Yep.
So, yeah. So when are you thinking about going back on course?
So I am
It's only been
hoping,
five months.
only been 5 months. I'm hoping maybe for the end of the year. That also depends on getting the proper equipment to do it. Because Hal does not like water and Hal does not like mud, and I would like to keep Hal happy. So, if I can get the proper equipment to be able to get something like a running blade or a more athletic knee situation, I'm hoping for the end of the year. I'm thinking I'm thinking that's not too lofty of a goal, but at this point, I set slightly unattainable goals, and somehow I've still managed to hit the ones that I've had. So, we're just going to roll with it. But um, I really hope to be back on the course this year. I miss it like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. Make sure that you can, get the right group around you, and I'm sure they'll find a way. But I mean, make sure to listen to your body.
Oh,
Because I
yeah.
mean, that would be there's so many things. Like in my brain, 'cause growing up, I had a cousin who had a couple different prosthetics, and I know back then, I mean, the technology isn't what it is now, but it was one of those. So many things could go wrong.
Hmm.
If you get something in between the prosthetic and your leg, whatever, and even just like the minutest like couple grains of sand, whatever, just enough. And if it's big enough, it'll start rubbing and cause, as I said, owie spots. I can't think of a better hot spots, whatever you want to call it, that could turn into blisters that could just, and then we get back into that spiral again where all of a sudden, oh, okay, now I can't use it because of this. And I need to, clean this and make sure it doesn't get infected and, the hygiene that goes along with the prosthetics. I mean, there's so many things that go with it that like you don't think about until
Yeah.
you have to do it. And nowadays with the stuff like yours, where it's got, mechanical and electrical and, it's HAL. I mean, it's got its own brain. That's,
Right.
you teach it things. And that's the part that gets me. I'm just like, you're teaching it things. I mean, most people they think of, pirate movies and Peg Leg Pete, and we've gone a long way from Peg Leg Pete. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And like you said, you've got to you've got to plan for all of those things. I'm already thinking, how can I seal my liner and how can I keep this from happening? And like I said, I've got such a great prosthetics team. I'm sure I'm going to have another version of Hal before I go out there. So we'll be able to talk about, what does suspension look like when you're trudging through mud? And, everyone jokes about, oh, you could lose your shoe in the mud. My leg could slip off in the mud and then we're really having an issue. But but again, it's all stuff that you just have to encounter, and as long as it's not going to be detrimental. And I know I'm going to have to train my brain to be very conscious of what's going on with my body, because like you said, a grain of sand in the wrong spot could put me out of walking for weeks. So I can't just get
yeah.
on the course and go, it's okay, I'll deal with it later. I have to. And that's the other hard part, is accepting now with being adaptive, accepting I might not be able to finish what I start, and it's not my fault if that happens. If I start feeling a little bit of irritation, it's not because I wasn't prepared, it's just the situation. So, it's even when I'm not physically training, I'm mentally training to say, if I get on the course and have to stop halfway through to protect my well-being, at least I tried.
Yeah, and I mean to protect your well-being so you can come out and do it again. You don't
Right.
want to be able to be like, I finished this one Spartan, but because I finished this, I did this, and this. Now I'm gonna have 6 months recovery. I can't go to the gym because, I can't put the leg on. I can't walk. I can't do that. And now I'm right back to where I started, and
Yep.
that's not what you want to see. You want to be able to do it again. I mean, I could just, in my brain, I'm just thinking of all the extra stuff. You need the dry bag with like dry towels and stuff like that. So in case you did get something there, you could, clean it and dry it off before you put it back. I mean, yeah, that's just where my brain goes, like,
Oh, there's
because
so
that's
many
the biggest
bringing some
part.
extra water to rinse any sand or any dirt or grit. And that's, you got to be really creative in your thinking. And luckily I have adaptive athlete friends who have done similar things. So, I can text them and go, "Hey, what was that like? What do you wish you had?" And in the flip side, what do you wish you didn't have? Like, what did you overpack when you
Yeah.
went on the course thinking you needed that? And so luckily I have that to be able to prepare. But um, like I said, it's a lot to think about and a lot to keep in your brain at all times. Um, but what's the alternative? Not ever doing anything again because it's all scary? That's not how we do things.
No, it's not. It's not. We do all the scary things. It's like I tell everyone when I first started doing like Tough Mudder and stuff like that, because I did Spartan for years and I would not do Tough Mudder because I do not like being shocked. And they're like, why won't you do it? I'm like, because I don't like shock. And I'm like, well, I guess that's why I have to do it because I don't like being shocked and I need to do it for what scares me. Same reason why I did triathlons. I'm a horrible swimmer. Horrible swimmer. And like the first time I did a triathlon, I'm like, I can swim well enough. This will be fine. And then the first night I finished and I like raised my hand to my friends, like, who can teach me how to swim?
Hmm.
Everyone's like, you don't know how to swim? I'm like, I figured out really quickly. I'm really good at not drowning. I suck at swimming.
It is the best description of that I've ever heard.
They are two different, you don't think about it, but they're two different things. Like not drowning is one thing, and like swimming from here to there, completely different.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't have even thought of that because, I haven't exactly tried to swim in a while, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going, gosh, I could keep myself from drowning, but from point A to point B,
Yeah,
maybe I should go work on that. That'll be my next little challenge is figure out how to swim.
you can come do you can come do a triathlon with me.
Maybe one day. You never know what's gonna happen.
I mean, I don't use my legs anyway, so my leg, that's my swim instructor. Everyone I've ever had is like, you realize you just drag your legs behind you like they're dead weight. And I'm like, eh. It's like if I use my legs, my arms aren't going to work when I swim. It's one or the other.
See, that I feel like that's me. The coordination just really isn't there. It's one or
Yep.
the other.
Arms or legs, one or the other. So I literally, but then it's one of the, a lot of people are like, it's actually better because I wear my arms out while I swim, but I don't use my legs at all. So my legs are good for the bike and the run. So,
Yeah,
but
it's
I
not
would
the
tell you,
worst thing in the world.
1.2 mile swim with just your arms, they hurt afterwards.
Yeah. Oh wow. I've picked the idea of a triathlon one day. And I
Hmm.
can't tell if it's the I want to do it solely because I've had people think that that's out of my realm of possibilities now, and do I want to do it because I want to do it. And so it's playing with the idea, but the more you talk about triathlons, the more I'm like, that kind of sounds fun.
I will do one with you. If you want to do one, then let me know when. And you don't have to go straight for like half Ironman. They have smaller ones. They call them sprints. That's like I think a 700-meter swim, and then you ride the bike for like 20 miles and run a 5K.
That would be more doable. I think I could shoot for that way before shooting for anything,
Yeah. And
insane.
see, that was me. I did that first, and then got the idea like, okay, that's when I learned. Okay, I need to learn how to swim because this is a problem. And then figured out need a better bike, need this, and just figured out what I needed.
Maybe I could get a little flipper leg because they make those with like a fin. And then as you kick your leg, the fin, I could look into that.
There you go. See, could help you
Then I'm going
swim.
to be changing
Yeah.
legs in
And for
between
the
everything. I'm
bike,
going to go, oh, this is my bike leg. This is my running leg. This is my swimming leg.
I
And this
have
is where
different
I
shoes for each
advocate for
part.
adaptive equipment because it's all very expensive. And I say we need better coverage for adaptive equipment. And that's my soapbox for the day.
Yeah. Like I said, that's one of the things that we've talked about. Me and Joey with Dealers of Hope. We were talking about on the last one because I do all the triathlons. He's like, we should start doing triathlons with Dealers of Hope. I'm like, I'm in. Let's go
Yeah.
for it. I'll go with you anytime you want. Let me know, and I'll figure out when, where, and I'll figure out how to get one of my bikes over there.
All right. Well, let me be able to hobble a 5K first, and then we'll start looking
Yeah,
at
we'll
doing
get
more.
there.
But
Hey, it doesn't have to be now, but
plenty of time.
we're young still. We're still young.
Oh, we're very young.
Yeah, we got time. We can do that. I think it'll be fun.
Oh yeah,
So,
I'll add that to my list of, things I want to do one day.
and I'll be honest, one of the things, like I said, that's what amazes me with you. Everything that's been thrown at you, and you're still like, let's keep adding to the list. You know, pretty much seems like if someone tells you you can't do that now, you're like, watch me.
That's to my detriment. I really am the kind of person, if you tell me that I'm not going to do it, I will do it whether I like it or not, just to prove you wrong. And that's
Mhm.
what happened with running in the first place. That's what happened with Spartan racing. Um, and when the wrong people find that out, they tend to use that against me and go, "Oh, I bet you won't." Okay, fine, I will. Um, but I keep reminding myself through this whole time, if you don't go out and do those things that you want to do, then why did you put yourself through this amputation in the first place? Because if
Yeah,
you were just never going to go do anything again, you could have kept your leg.
yeah.
But
You just kept
you,
your leg and been a lump on the couch.
right. But I went through the amputations. I went through the recovery and the healing and learning how to use it, strengthening all the muscles, retraining myself. So I put in the effort there. I may as well just keep going and do all the rest of it.
Yeah, might as well. Just keep going.
Yeah, no
It's
reason not
awesome.
to.
So I know we haven't brought it up. We've been talking a lot, which is awesome. I love talking to you. Um, your book, how's that going?
It is going fantastic.
I don't know, my copy's right over there. That's why I pointed.
Nice. Yeah, it's going so great.
Mm,
It has opened some incredible doors and gotten me into some incredible things that um even when I was thinking about publishing originally, I did not foresee all of these cool things happening or all of the new ideas that have come because of it. And I'm really excited for how things are going. I'm working on two other books right now, um, playing with some other ideas about, where do I want to take this now that it's happening? And um, it has been amazing and amazing to hear the feedback from people and what they think when they read it.
which is awesome. It's great. And I will be honest, I've started, I haven't finished it yet, just because yeah, life's been crazy. But
Life has
like I
been
said,
great
started a
lately.
new job, did all that. It's it's started, but I need to finish it. I need to sit down one day when I'm not got 20 million things. Because basically, one thing, I mean, some people know I'm working on my master's degree. I'm supposed to be done in June. So, and
Nice.
actually, this term, my counselor screwed up when they did my whole plan to finish and graduate in June, and they missed a class. So I was doing the math, and I'm like, I'm one class short from finishing in June. They're like, oh shit, you are.
Oh no.
And I'm like, double me up. And they're like, what? And I'm like, double me up on the next term. So this term I'm doing double the classes so that I'll finish in June. So this term my brain is frying at the moment. So especially with all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm gonna do that. And then hey, why not start a brand new job in the middle of all that? So
Right.
yeah, just add to it. So yeah. So and of course it's like what this one is advanced air pollution and advanced pollution prevention at the same time.
Oh boy, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, my brain hurts. I know way too much about air pollution and everything else right now.
I'll bet. But I mean, congratulations for just doing the thing.
Yeah. It's like I said, I'm in safety, and if you don't have the degrees and the letters behind your name, no one pays attention. So it's like, might as well
Yep.
just keep going and getting more stuff. So yeah, so your book is, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read the whole thing. Like I said, I've started it like twice and got, a little bit into it, and then school and everything else has gotten in my way. So, I mean, but I enjoy talking about it anyway. You should just read it to me. There we go.
There we go.
Hmm.
I've been told I should do an audiobook a couple of times. Maybe that'll be one of my future projects. Um,
You should.
yeah. And now
Uh,
people are telling me they want a sequel.
eh. Well, I mean, you kind of have to
I,
because
I know, right?
the whole book is before the above the knee.
Yep.
So you kind of have to go through and be like, okay, here's book one with, below the knee, up to below the knee. And now, I've advocated for myself. I've done all this stuff. And now I've had you really kind of have to do a sequel.
Yep. So that's going to be one of those future projects I'm playing with. There are two other books that I actually wanted to do before I wrote Limitless. But as I was figuring out what I wanted to do, I said, I think I just need to tell the story first. And then when I'm working on these other projects, I actually have a reference for what happened. And I've already told myself the story. So um, I'm going to work on those first and try to get those drafted. I'm really excited about them because one is going to benefit young adult cancer survivors. And so, little known fun fact, but a couple of years ago before Limitless, I was actually a contributor to a book called Take This Chemo. And it was written by one of my friends, and it's basically like a chemo survivor's guide, with all kinds
Hmm.
of tips and you know, don't eat your favorite foods on chemo in case you start puking it up and it's not your favorite food anymore. And just all those kinds of things that you wouldn't necessarily think about until you've learned the lesson the hard way. So he got a couple of cancer survivors together to brainstorm all of our ideas, and he put that book together. And then so my idea was, but what about after chemo? What about after you ring the bell and all of a sudden you're a young adult and they say, go back to real life. What are you going to do now? And so I said, I should write a survivor's guide for that, and about how to navigate life as a young adult cancer survivor. And so that's one of the projects I'm working on. The other one is going to be geared towards medical professionals because, you know, like we've talked a little bit about, there are some things that could change, and maybe
Hmm.
somebody just needs to write about it. So I said, I'm going to use my perspective to write about that too, and hopefully advocate for some change with how patients are cared for. So um, those are my big projects right now.
Which is awesome. Which is awesome. There's so many times I've heard stories, similar to yours in some ways, where people are like, "Hey, this is what I want, and this is what I think can happen." The doctor's like, "Yeah, no, we don't want to do that." And then they've had to fight and go to other doctors, and it's like, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're just trying to get something." No, you're trying to get the best quality of life for yourself, and talk to a doctor and get a second opinion. Because a lot of times, some doctors, they just, for whatever reason, they think this is what's best for you, even though they don't know you. They
Right,
don't know you as a person. Because I'm sure they're just thinking of, oh, you've done this, you're just gonna be a lump on the couch anyway. What does it matter?
right,
You know, and they don't know the what you want to do. They don't know the Spartans and everything else, and the fact that you want to be able to, run and do all these things and still, do triathlons with me. I mean, they don't know you want to do all this stuff. So, you
right.
know, they're not going to advocate for you know, making it easier for you, making it better for you, which is awesome that you advocate for yourself because that's
Yeah.
sometimes what you need to do.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I want to teach patients self-advocacy, but there's the other side of that, what if we taught doctors about these perspectives? And what if we, helped them realize, you walk into a room and you've met someone in 5 minutes. You have no idea that person's life, what they want, their goals. In fact, my prosthetist was the first person that ever asked me in the medical field, what do you want your life to look like? And not just, this is what we can do for you, but this is what your life is going to look like. And
Yeah.
and it actually froze me because I almost forgot what I wanted my life to look like because I was so used to people telling me that it was going to look a certain way. And, those are some of the perspectives that I want to bring to medical professionals' attention is saying, and like you said, you said it very specifically, we don't want to do that. you would be surprised how many times it is simply that they don't want to do it that way. And it's like, but it's not your body that that's affecting. It's not your life that it's affecting. It's not about
Mhm.
what you want. It's about what I need. And so I want to bring those perspectives and show them how they can advocate for patients so that when patients are advocating for themselves and they become advocates, we're working together for the best quality of life and not working against each other.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things somewhere it's been kind of lost a little bit in our medical, you know, what a society or however you want to call it, that the whole idea of better quality of life for the patients. It's people see too much of just the medical side of it and not, and that's been one of my biggest problems with doctors. Like right now, I I haven't been to a doctor in like a year and a half because I just don't want to deal with them because that was my biggest thing. You go in and they immediately look at me and be like, "Oh, you're fat, you're overweight, you whatever," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you're not looking at anything else that I'm doing, all that stuff." And yeah, I do could stand to lose a little bit of weight, but I'm still doing Spartan races, I'm doing all that, and it's like they don't look at you or learn who you are. And I mean, that's one of the things
Right.
I've been really great. Like the only kind of doctor I go to is my chiropractor. And that's, they know exactly that I'm training for an Ironman, that I'm doing this. And they're like, okay, you've been swimming, so we need to look at your shoulders. We need to do this. And it's like, awesome. Someone who actually asked me, what do I do outside of this office that would make it so that, I need to do things. And the same thing, like, when you're prosthetist, I think I almost said that right.
I, you got it.
Asked, what do you want? What do you want out of this? So it can help like, oh, hey, you want this. This prosthesis will probably work, really well. We can make this, we can do this, we can make this adjustment because you want to do this with it rather than just here's your peg,
Hmm.
and that's, that's awesome that they asked.
It is awesome. I am always so impressed. And like you said, there are so many things that they do. Like there are hundreds of different foot components and knees and ways to suspend. And the fact that, my prosthetist is willing to take the time to sit down and go, okay, these are your goals. What combination of the thousands, if not millions of combinations that are out there will get you to these goals? And I am always impressed at the things that they can do to make it possible because they are the type of people to say, you've got all these things going on, this is what you want. It's almost like a partnership instead of a dictatorship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get that with the doctors, like, well, you won't be able to do that anymore. You're like, yeah, well, and your process is going, okay, this is what you want to do. This is how we can help get you there. And that's one of the things I think has been lost in the medical profession in a lot of ways. It's pretty much like, well, this is what we can do for you, like you said a minute ago. This is what we can do for you, and this is what your life's going to be like. And you're like, no, that's not what it's going to be like. You know,
Right.
just it comes back to that quality of life. It's one of those things, if you don't have the quality of life, what are you fighting for?
Right. And I think specifically with amputation, there's a stigma that's really hurtful and not hurtful, it's unhelpful. When you go to talk about something, I've heard stories of people who were living with not that great a quality of life because their doctors just weren't giving them the right options. And finally they said, can you just amputate already? And doctors wanted to push back and, oh, that's not what you want to do. You want to save the leg. And then they eventually get the amputation and they go, I just wasted 10 years of my life because
Hmm.
we could have done this 10 years ago. And that's another one of the huge things I want to advocate for is, yeah, amputation is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I don't think it should be excluded from the options. Like that's what they tried to do to me for my first one. They didn't even want to tell me the amputation was an option. And, you know, when you walk into a room as a doctor with someone and you're meeting them for the first 5 minutes, you can't tell if they're going to be the kind of person that wants to hear about amputation or doesn't. So it's a pretty safe bet to just say, hey, this is one of the options too. We should at least talk about that and talk about the realities of it. I'm all for, the optimism and saying, this has made my life so much better. It's absolutely amazing. I'm also going to tell you that it's really hard and it comes with its hard days. And, these last 5 months have not been a piece of cake, but they've been worth it. And it's worth having that full conversation of this is what your life could look like. It's going to be hard and it is going to require a lot of work. But, I don't want people to discount the quality of life that they could get from this versus, like I said, living with 10 years of constant surgeries and fixes and pain and blah, 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 only to realize 10 years later that it was a better option.
Yeah, because I think that'd be even more frustrating. And I think that mentally, you're already mentally beat down because you haven't been able to do anything that you wanted to for 10 years. And then all of a sudden you get the option that you should have gotten 10 years ago. And then you're like, awesome. So for 10 years, I haven't been able to do all this stuff when there was another option where I could have. And it
Mm-hmm.
might be one of those things too that maybe technology got better in those 10 years. But it's like you said, at least bring it up as an option.
Right.
In safety, that's what I always tell everyone. What's crazy is for me in safety, the first thing we say, tell everyone, worst case scenario, tell me what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I know worst case scenario, then I know how to plan for the worst case so that I can, and then try not to make that happen, but at least I have an option for it and I know what to do. I have a
Right.
plan for worst case. And the same thing with that. I mean, hey, worst case amputation. Okay, cool. What does that look like?
And
You
see, the
know?
thing is, how much different would the medical profession look if we did ask those questions? I say we as someone who doesn't work in the medical field, but if that question was asked, because you look at me and you say, "What's your worst case scenario?" I'm stuck on the couch for the rest of my life and I can't do anything.
Mhm.
But you look at someone else and you say, what's your worst case scenario? It very well could be that amputation is their worst case scenario because, it's different for everyone. Everyone has their own ideas. But if you know the worst case, you say, what's your best case scenario? What's your worst case scenario? Let's find what we can do, get as close to good as we can and stay as far away from worst as possible. And let that be a conversation instead of just, well, don't do that anymore. You're not going to do that again. And
Yeah.
I think if honestly, if we just, I'm back on my soapbox, but if we just change the way we approach medicine into a conversation, into, not just, hey, I have 15 minutes with this patient, I got to get in and out. Um, but really finding out what's important to the patient and what they want their quality of life to be, what they absolutely want to avoid, and then discussing it as a team with the patient and the provider. I think even just that would make a world of difference in the medical field. Oh, it's all good. It's still frozen, but I can hear you.
That's good. That's good. Um, well, I mean, we're almost to that hour mark anyway, which Don gets mad at me when I have too much farther of that. So we definitely need to continue this conversation. We should do this again soon and talk
Oh
some
yeah.
more. Because for one, I don't think I ever even announced your name. It's Rebecca Denae, by the way, everyone. Just so if you haven't figured that out by this point,
Hi,
but
I'm Rebecca.
you know, but it's whatever. You know,
It's
we we
whatever.
I,
I mean,
we just busted right into it and started talking, which is amazing. So,
yeah, let's
but
do it
these,
again and we'll
I'll be
keep
honest,
talking
these are the
about
ones
all
I
the
love.
things.
Yeah, these are the ones I love because you're so easy to talk to. We can have conversations, and really go into it. I mean, it's awesome. I would definitely love to do this again, especially, once you get closer to publishing those other books, and stuff like that. So we can definitely, let everyone know about them. Then once we get you out on course, we're gonna have to, talk about that. But it'll be a while because we
It'll be
don't
a
want you to
while,
rush it
but
because we want to make sure that you can keep coming out on course and, having fun and all that stuff. So,
oh
but
yeah, but
yeah,
let's go in it for the long haul.
yeah, you got it. So, thank you for coming on here with me and talking, and let's set up another day and do it again. So and
All
talk some
right,
more
let's do it again. Thank
because
you. This
I
was an
feel
awesome conversation.
it was, and I feel like we got a lot more we can talk about in this, especially really getting into the whole idea of the kind of where the medical field really should look at things a little better. But
Oh, we could
you
we
know,
could go on that one. We should definitely plan that.
yes, definitely, definitely. So, all right. Well, thank
All
you,
right.
and we will talk again soon.
See you later.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.